Okay, today I'm going to walk you through how we taught Mia to close the door without scratching it. This whole process took us about a month, but we're going to go through it pretty quick. Our first step with Mia was to teach her to touch a target on the ground with her paw so that we could eventually use this to close the door. This is going to be a two-step process to close the door. So we started out just by putting a blue target on the ground, and every time she touched it with her foot, we'd click and give her a treat. So it didn't take me very long to figure out that this was an easy way to get treats. We then began to move into different locations because we wanted this to be a portable skill. And dogs don't really generalize well, so if you want something to be able to go on the road with you, you've got to move it. And so we did some training in a new location. Once she got used to moving around and doing this wherever we put the target, we began to pick it up off the ground, as you can see here. So I'm holding it in my hand at first. It's not very high off the ground in the beginning. And every day when we trained, we'd step back one step and then move forward pretty quickly up to where we were. So once we got used to this, our next step was to move it to the door where we're going to be practicing. We started out practicing on a door we don't really care too much about because it might get scratched in the beginning as we're working on this skill. So we began to work on the door. We'd start on the ground every day and then quickly move the pad up to the door. It has some sticky stuff on the back so that we can stick it on the door. And again, just click and treat every time she touches the pad with her foot.
Yes, good girl.
And we're going to have her jump up on the door and push on it with her foot at the end of this skill set. So we're moving this pad up higher and higher to work her up to where she's jumping up and pushing on the door. So ultimately, instead of just dragging her foot down the door like she's doing now, we want her to jump up on her back feet and give it a shove.
Yes, good girl. Yes, good girl.
At the same time that you can see her now working up higher, so she's lifting up to push on the door up high with her feet. And because she does this, and she's pretty good at balancing on her back feet already, she's able to back up and not scratch the door. We also had to get used to having the door move and latch, because this is how she's going to latch the door when we get done. Mia's a pretty small dog, and I've done this before with dogs who had a hard time latching the door with their nose if I didn't want them to scratch it. And so with Mia, we're going to have her latch it with her feet after she pushes it closed. And what we found out happened, which is our training bump in the road, is that she didn't like the sound of the door latching. And so as soon as we had her latch the door once, she got to where she didn't want to get close to it again. And so we had to work with trying to get her to come close to the door again with her feet in order to latch it. And I'm going to show you at the end how we overcame that problem. At the same time, we were also working on reinforcing her doing a nose touch, which she already knew. I want to point out the difference between the way the door looks to Mia and the way it looks to us. Notice that the green pad, which is the one we're using for the nose touch on the bottom, does not look green to Mia. She can see that there's a texture difference, but she can't see a color difference between the green and the door color. She can see the blue pad for her feet just fine, though. So it's something to keep in mind when you're working with touch pads with dogs, is that they don't see color the same way that we do. But since she's having to get close to it with her nose, it wasn't really totally necessary that she see it as a different color. Mia already knew how to push a touch pad with her nose on command, and so we didn't have to teach that. If we did, we would have taught it the same way we taught the foot touch at the beginning. So since she already knows this command, once we started reinforcing it, we moved pretty quickly to having the door move. She has no problem moving the door with her nose.
Good girl. Again.
But she doesn't push it hard enough with her nose to get it to latch.
Good girl. Again.
So we just worked on having the door swing different distances and having her push it all the way. Prior to this, she knew to touch the pad with her nose, but she didn't know that we wanted her to continue to push on it until the door moved all the way to its latching position.
Good girl.
So we had to reinforce her keeping her nose on the door longer, and as she did that, it would move, and she would have to move forward in order to keep her nose on the door, and that led to her pushing the door closed.
Nose.
Okay, our next step was to
Yes, good girl.
combine pushing the door with her nose and shoving it that last little bit closed with her feet. And so we would give her the command for the nose, and then once the door was in the latching position, we would give her the command for the foot.
Good girl.
And we did this over and over again until she got used to doing them in that order every single time. Once she got used to doing it in that order every time, we added the command close the door, and then we would repeat the nose command and the foot command. And we continued to do that until she was pretty solid at it.
Yes, yay! Good job. Good, close the door. Good girl, Mia. Good girl. I know, I still have one. Close the door.
If she didn't push it hard enough, we just asked her to do it again. So she had to get that click on the door in order to get her treat at this point. Okay, so once she got to where she would do that in sequence every time, and we would use the close the door command, we started to wean out the nose touch command and the foot command. We were still using hand signals in the beginning, so we would just say close the door and then give her the hand signal for the nose and give her the hand signal for the foot, so that she wasn't getting the verbal cue for that. Eventually we took out the hand signals as well, and she would just get the close the door command. And she would close the door just on a single command. And this wasn't originally the door we wanted her to be working with long term, so we did have to move this once she got that skill down, just like everything else. With a dog, you need to take it to a different location. And so we took it to a different location and had her work with closing a different door. We also added distance and continued to practice until Mia got really good at it. And I told you I would tell you how we overcame her not liking the latching sound. Notice her backing away in this video. This is because she doesn't like the sound of the door latching. It was kind of a noisy door as it latched. And so what we did is I would push the door closed and then toss a treat. She didn't want to come close to the door. I continued to do this. It was kind of like teaching her to recognize a clicking clicker sound as an indication of getting a reward. And I continued to do that until she wasn't quite as shying away from the door so much. Then instead of tossing the treat, I would hold the treat in my hand as I closed the door, so that she would have to come close to the door as I pushed it closed. And we continued to do this until that clicking sound no longer bothered her, and to her, that click meant I'm going to get a treat.
Just put them on the door.
And so once she was okay with the sound of the door, we went back to having her jump up and push the door on her own instead of having me push it closed. And that's how we overcame the problem and taught Mia how to close the door without scratching it in 1 month.